Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Sadaya, and this is our first episode of the Womenism. No, it's Womenism.
Ism.
Shut up, yo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this along. Again, this is Sadaya, wife of Cicelo.
Hi, this is Ahava. Very blessed to be here. And also wife of Cicelo in the house of Cicelo.
Hello, this is Shay, also a wife of Cicelo. And yeah, let's run it.
What's up, y'all? This is Tachi, also a new wife of Cicelo.
This is Bina Weena. I am a wife of Cicelo, and I'm here to have a good time. Let's go.
All right. Okay, so today I wanted to touch on the topic of our individual marriages, and I want to start with what it is labeled. So they call it polygyny. So before you knew what you were involved in, what did you think of polygyny? What did you think that this was, this type of marriage?
So this is Bina, and I was like, hell no. Hell no, that's not for me. No, that's my man. That's mine, you know? That's how I thought about it.
I think I had the same general idea of that. I was like, okay, it might be good for them, but I don't know what you're talking about. I'm good. Pass it to you.
Well, this is Ahava. Be it that I'm older, I've been around longer, so my first introduction to polygyny was from the Islamic community back in the 80s. So I knew of polygyny, and it was something that wasn't frowned upon by me. I've seen it done. When I came into the truth, into the Hebraic faith, and when I read the scriptures, I always saw that a lot of the men of the scriptures had more than one wife. David in particular, I believe it said he had 16, with some of those being concubines. So
from the beginning, from day one, you always was like, this is cool, this is what I want.
I never said what I wanted or what I didn't want. I just was acceptant of polygyny because of my belief system. If you were to ask me prior to teenage years, I can't tell you.
I had already kind of partaken in some things. A lot of my relationships, when I was practicing monogamy, I was cheated on. So I felt like I was either going to be on board with it or I wasn't. It was, you was going to share your man willingly or you was going to share him unwillingly. So when I actually got presented with it, I was cool with it because it was already what was going on in my monogamous relationships.
It's Shay speaking. Honestly, I didn't know what to think. I'm very open-minded, but in my relationships, before even coming into or even knowing about polygyny relations, I was more so monogamy. But when I look back on it, I don't really know what I was because my main thing was I never liked getting cheated on either. But if you told me the truth, see, I can do well with the truth. I just don't like to be lied to. So coming into it, it was more so very nerve-wracking because I don't necessarily get along with women. Well, I didn't anyway. So I never really hung around women like that, and I guess that was the hardest part for me. But as far as just being open-minded, I felt like, hey, anything is possible.
So, you're a mess. When did it become okay? Because from the beginning, it was rough for you based on what you just said. And I know your backstory. So when did you become okay?
Yeah, so this is Bina again. So for me, it was one, I had to come to the realization that these men are not your property. That took a little while getting used to because I didn't think of it that way, but that's essentially how I was taking it. It wasn't until he took on his first wife that I realized, like, what the benefits could be. Like, not me and that wife didn't get along, no, but I did learn where benefits could be added, where things could go. I was able to kind of grasp how it could work out.
So hold on, because you said once he took on his first wife. So where did you come along for our new listeners?
Okay, well, so if you okay, so if you have first wife, second wife, technically I was there first. We don't do that.
You were the initial wife.
There you go. That's the word. Yeah, I don't want to say first
so
wife.
for the people that don't know, you were the initial wife, the very first one he started this foundation with.
Yes.
All right.
There you go. And then, so when I say took on his first wife, I say that as in, like, that's the first time that he chose a woman, took her to marriage, and she was there. Yeah. There have been other women that had come in and been a process, and it wasn't sitting with me. So I couldn't say I grasped it then. So it wasn't until about 3 years later I really put my head around it. I just, you look around, you realize you're constantly cooking, you're constantly cleaning, you're constantly working, you're constantly doing so much stuff. It's just a lot. You got to really open the picture up and see where the benefits could be.
That was something that I had read in a book, and it was just like when the sisters come together in this type of dynamic, which is called polygyny, and I'm going to explain to the listeners different types of quote unquote marriages that there are now. But that was one of the things that kind of resonated with me as well. It's like, hold on. Okay, so I don't got to cook all the time. I don't have to do this all the time. And I get to share this with somebody. And that was one of the things that stuck out for me. So you said you got comfortable 3 years later. So knowing that, some people might not be willing to wait that long, what is a tip that you would give to somebody that's considering this type of dynamic?
More so really make sure it's something that you want to do. I would say make sure it's something you really want to do. Really weigh out your options, weigh out, everything. It's not even options, just take a look at everything, because even if you be like, oh, well, I think I can do that, that thinking is not only going to cause you misery because you're not too sure about it and you're going through it. It's going to cause that man that you're with misery. It's going to cause these women that you're trying to build with misery because you're just so on the edge with it. I'm not saying everybody's perfect and you'll know right then and there, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but just make sure that's something you really want to work for and really want to do and understand it.
I'd like to add too, we here in this society have not experienced this type of marriage before, so we don't have anything to pull on. So there's a lot of mistakes that we can make along the way, but especially when you hear, and I've said it too, I don't have any women friends. If you don't have any women friends and you don't like women, then you need to consider, what is a sisterhood? What is it that we're entering into? Because you're going to be, in most instances, or in a lot of instances, you're living in the household with your husband's wives. Some men choose to have the women outside in their own homes, but in our situation, we're all living here and building together. And, you have to come to grips with the fact that, what is that you really, really don't like about women? Because coming into a polygynous relationship is you dealing with women, sisters, having children that are brothers and sisters, and then what are your core values? So if your values are different, those are where that's where you have problems with one another, because your value system may be different. So these are things that have to be discussed once you're in the home, because a lot of that is just one-on-one with the man, with the husband. Once he brings you home, then you have to get acclimated with whatever it is, plus you're bringing something too.
Every man is able to run their home the way that they choose to. So on the topic of polygyny, which again is the dynamic that we're in, but there's also another one called polygamy. And polygamy is very popular. I think they have like a TV show called like Big Love. Like it's very popular. And that is where an individual is going to have multiple spouses, and that individual is generally a man. So on, I think the Big Love, he had all of his women in different homes. And for some women, going along with what you said, like what if your man wants his home ran a certain way and that's just not something that you're comfortable with? So it's really important. I think it's really important. I did a lot of research before I even dug into it because I said nope. So with polygamy, and a lot of people will say that like, oh, you guys are in a polygamous union. It's like, no, there's a difference. And the difference, and another key point with ours, is that our husband has to take responsibility for each one of us. He is going into a committed dynamic with each one of us, which means, in an emergency, I can call him and he's going to come to my aid, which is also another key point for me and why I love this type of dynamic, is because it's not just women just all over the place. Like, he wants us all in one space, where there are some women and some families that are also in polygyny, and they choose to keep their women separate. They choose to not display any PDA, which is, PDA, public display of affection. And they've been like that for 20 plus years, where the husband, because women, you know how women can be, he chooses not to touch them, not to kiss them, not to do anything in front of the other one, because he wants peace all the time. But then, women, you can find something else. So I think it's important to lock in with your man and knowing what it is that he wants, because it's not, once you say I do, or whatever you say in your vows to be committed into this type of dynamic, it's no longer your mission. It's his. Whatever he wants, that's what we're doing. And that's why we found ourselves in this type of situation, this beautiful union, this beautiful man. There was something else go ahead.
Yeah, I also want to say, I cannot speak on this relationship without bringing in our Father, Yah. Because without a belief system, you're going to have chaos. Yeah. If you have no type of morality, if you don't believe in the scriptures and what it says, then your marriage is going to be chaotic. Because most people there's people who enter into these relationships without a source. And you see that. You have all kind of things happening within the home. There were even, I won't even go, that's drifting off, so cut that part. But yeah, I believe that when you have a belief system, one of the strongest points with sisters is our prayer life. And I think it runs true that the family who prays together stays together. So when we start developing a prayer life with one another, then we begin to have a strong bond. And that's where your morality comes in, and that you're teaching your children the same thing. You're not going to have sets of children who are going to be treated differently, because we all have one belief system. I think that's where the source lies. I don't think that is wise for them to think of this type of marriage without a belief system because of morality issues. So, be it that you have a relationship with a particular man, I don't think those relationships will be fruitful because of they're not having any standards. I think you have to have some kind of standards. And scripturally, we know that this was the way of life of our people. So our people had wives. The men had wives, and they had wives, and these wives were able to offer inheritance to their children based on their husband's inheritance. Because you are married, you have your children have a right to their father's inheritance, and it's all written in a law. But you don't have these laws, you're going to have chaos. They don't need to say I'm married, because like Tati was saying, we had boyfriends, and the boyfriends had girlfriends, and everybody was everywhere doing everything. There's no commitment. You might have one woman who might be committed in that relationship to that boyfriend, but there's the next woman who has two boyfriends and that one. and vice versa. So you're just having free sex everywhere, and that's not safe in this society, and it's corruptible. It's very corrupt, and it causes internal and spiritual issues. So sleeping around like that.
So I agree with most of your sentiments, but I'm gonna come back on it in a second. I'm gonna say my question again, but this time I'm gonna ask you. What sister wife tip would you give to someone considering this type of marriage that may not have our beliefs?
This is Shay speaking. My tip, I would say, yeah, if you wanna go that route in polygyny, like Bina, I'm sorry, you did say Bina, right? I'm sorry. Okay. Like she mentioned, like just make sure that's something that you really want to do, because again, women are women, and we can sometimes be catty a little bit, and if that's not where you want, or if that's not somewhere you want to place yourself, then I wouldn't recommend anybody just going into it like that. As far as some women, they think that it's okay to, let's say, I guess, have orgies or whatever, like.
So that'd be polyamory.
Okay.
That was the one that I was gonna cover in a moment. But yeah, polyamory.
Okay.
Or promiscuity, because there's some women just out there.
Yeah.
So I said it that way because I know a family. One of the wives is Hebrew and her husband is Hebrew, but his second wife is a Muslim, and they've been together for 12 years. So there's something there on a moral compass where you may not have the same ideologies or you may not have the same belief system. I agree with you on the sentiments of it being chaotic, right? Because how you doing this and you doing that, I get it. But again, every man can run his home the way that he feels that is going to work. And then we know scripturally, it's one of the favorite things that you say about a non-believer.
Oh, that a non-believer is sanctified by their believing spouse or husband. So that's true too. However, there are laws that are in place.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying. Because Islamic, you mentioned the two groups, the Islamic and the Hebraic, where they were both, they cite Abraham as their ancestors, their father. One were the children of promise and one was not. But yet, they enter into, they have some type of moral code. And that's all I'm saying. Because if you don't have a moral code, I'm not saying your relationship won't be successful. It's just going to be chaotic based on, someone said, the orgies and the things that might happen. Because a lot of people believe that when they see our husband rocking with 4 or 5 beautiful women, all covered down, then they're like, oh yeah, I want to be like him. They're not thinking about his responsibility to feed us what it is that we need for our growth. All they're thinking about is sex, and what kind of sex, the orgy type.
So I was talking to Tachi the other day, and she said that that's one of the main questions that you get when they, what is it?
So I was at work. One of the dudes was talking about one of his friends had 2 girlfriends, and they got this spilling about the whatever, and the girl, they got to asking, I'm like, you with the whole poly relationship thing? And I was like, yeah, I'm with it. Mind you, not speaking on my situation, but just in general, yeah, I'm with it. And so, you been in a poly relationship before? I'm like, yeah, I've been in a poly relationship before. Okay, so what's this and that? Do y'all sleep together? Like, does he allow you to sleep with the women? Like, do y'all sleep in the same bed? Like, do y'all have sex in front of each other? And I'm like, whoa. Where have you been hearing these things from?
I think that is one of the core questions. They always go to the sex. And that's one of the biggest problems and why a lot of men cannot have this type of marriage, is because they're just going to that. And it's really not about how many vaginas that the man can get. It's actually how every woman can have a husband in this type of dynamic, in polygyny. And that's why it's so righteous, is because, again, turmoil happens. You get the flat tire, you get, just all kinds of things happen. And it's so, such a relief to be able to have a husband to come and protect you and to provide, as Ahava just spoke about. But go ahead.
And I also want to add too that you have sisters when your husband is away, now you're protecting one another. You have children amongst each other. We don't have to worry about no foreign babysitters and anybody touching on our children. So us as sisters will develop, as we continue to grow, a strong bond to where even if our husband is not available, we would be able to come to each other's support and not be alone. I think that's one of the big pluses in this dynamic, is that your sisterhood, and our husband is raising us up as his wives to believe the same thing, and support each other.